Hey, what's up guys, Nature, and welcome to this Sonic Academy tutorial series. This is our beginner's guide to Cubase 13 course. Right, so these are updated versions of the 9.5 Cubase beginners series. If you have done those in the past, chances are there's not going to be a whole lot new here for you, although we do cover quite a few of the new features and plugins in subsequent versions to Cubase. The general content that we're covering here is very much the same as those 9.5 walkthroughs. Now this is a multi-series course divided into two levels. This series, level 1, we're going to do a crash course on how to use Cubase. Remember I said this is designed for beginners getting into this DAW for the first time. We're going to take a look at getting your audio setup up and running, customizing certain elements of Cubase. We'll take a guided tour around the user interface. Before starting to work on our first track, we'll look at doing some percussion, importing some synth parts, creating some chords and some rough arrangement before exporting to audio. We're going to be using 100% stock plugins from Steinberg for this tutorial series, so everybody can follow along if you have a copy of Cubase or even the demo version of Cubase if you'd like to test it out. And without further ado, let's dive straight into the tutorial series. Let's get into Cubase, check it out and get things loaded up. I'll catch you in the next video. See you then. Cheers. Right, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Cubase user interface and just where everything is that you are going to be working with in this DAW. Now Cubase looks a lot nicer than it used to. It used to be quite messy with, windows all over the place. Everything sort of popped up over the arrange page. They have gradually been moving more towards this sort of one window design, very much like Ableton and Bitwig have. You still have a number of the extra windows, which we'll take a look at as well, that can be overlaid. But for the most part, you can do a lot of what you need to, all within this arrange page window, which is what we have up right now. I'd like to just look at a few of the elements here. You'll see a lot of these elements are kind of repeated throughout different areas of Cubase as well. We've got the menu bar, which we've touched on briefly in the last video. Then you have Cubase's toolbars, and you can see one up at the top here right now, and we've got another toolbar down at the bottom. And you'll see toolbars like this all over inside the editors, in the mixer, and they are all highly customizable and display a lot of important information for you. To customize any of these, and if at any point you see me clicking on something and you don't have it in your Cubase, the chances are it's just simply hidden. If you right click on any of the toolbars, you'll see that you can decide what goes in any of these toolbars at any given time. You can even duplicate things like the transport controls, for example. We could have those displayed in the top rather than the bottom, and we could vice versa, we could take those out. There's a few differences like the auto quantize and the record modes and stuff are kind of locked in the bottom section here, and you can really just decide what you want displayed at any given time. You can also move these around as you see fit. Say for instance the transport controls that I have here, I'll just take the tool buttons off. Let's say I want the transport controls locked on the left. We can move that above this left divider that we have here. Let's say we don't want to divide at all, we could remove that completely, but we do have that, then it pushes over to the left. We can move the transport controls below that. We could just push them all the way into the middle if we wanted to. It's really up to you how you want to arrange these around. I'm just going to have a look at a few of these tools, though, the default ones that are up here. These are going to be access to your windows. These are also windows that you can access via F keys. Generally, they've got shortcuts, or at least the default shortcuts. This would be Media Bay, which is F5. This is going to be where all your samples and things are, which we'll take a look at shortly. This is your pool. We'll talk about that at some point as well. The mixer window pops up there. That's F3. This is control room, which you also have on the right hand side there as well, and then the direct offline processing as well, which we'll get to at some point. You have track visibility controls here. You can create different configurations here for hiding MIDI or audio, whatever you want. It's all very customizable because you can turn on VCA tracks, turn them off, turn on samplers, turn those off, and so on. Mute solo, write automation over there. This is your automation modes. This will open up your automation page here for you. This is important as well, your colorize, so you can make your projects nice and organized. Then we've got quantization stuff happening here. Snap to grid, this is an important one here if you want to you are not snapping to things, this is where you want to turn that on and off. This is snap to zero crossings. This is useful for audio editing. This is your project root key when it comes to using the chord editors. You can set the root key for the project there. Quantize, I typically have this set to quantize there. I did say we have a adapt to zoom, which will adapt the quantize settings to whatever zoom level you're at. I prefer to use the quantize setting because we have the keys set up for that. Or you can snap to beats and bars. We've got our quantize settings here and set up for quantize. And this is where you would set up shuffles and so on and so on. You can also quantize your audio warping as well when it comes to stretching audio. You can apply shuffles and things to that too. And there's a performance meter here, don't have to worry about that. And I would like you to pay a close attention to these on the right, because these controls you're going to see a lot as well throughout the interface. This one is just the MIDI remote mapping. If you want to quickly map a control to something within Cubase, you do it there. But these show hide channel, show hide left zone, these zone controls. You've got these four, which are these sort of quick controls to get these zones up and down. We've got 4 of those. And then you also have this global setup window layout, which is essentially the same, but just condensed to one control there. Now the channel is new in Cubase 13. That is going to open up the channel that you currently selected on the left zone, pretty much the same way as that you have it set up in the mixer. This is also customizable, so you can right-click this channel section at any time and say Set Up Sections. You can decide what you want displayed here, routing, for example. You can have your EQ in there if you want. Then we have a second left zone, which would be the inspector window. Again, completely customizable. And this can also duplicate a lot of this. You don't need to have these both, but it is quite nice to have the separation between those, because these also display stuff from the editors, which we'll have a look at it a bit as well. You can set this up to show whatever you want here. Quick controls, EQs again, note expression. If you want to do chord stuff from here, you can. Then we've got the right zone. The right zone has everything pertaining to your VST rack here, so any instruments that are loaded up will show up here. You have a media section. You can actually load VST instruments from here if you wanted to. We're in the Sonic Academy list. I've got Kick 2 there. We can just click and drag that in, and it'll load it up. If we go back to our default list here, you'll see you have a number of instruments available to there that can be dragged in and out. Same goes for the effects. Click home, you've got effects in here. You can just drag those onto a channel, and you'll see you now have the bit crusher effect on that. So that's a nice way of working as well. Loops and samples, these are the built-in or stuff that ships with Cubase along with the presets. Your own user presets are here. And then you have a file browser and favorites. Favorites is useful. You can set favorite folders. Let's say file browser, for example. We're going to just look at what's on our computer. It's a standard file browser. The parts that we're going to be using during this course are here. So we could, let's just favorite this right now. We'll say add favorite. And anytime we want to access these parts now, we can just get to them via the favorite section here. Click Sonic Academy there, and all the parts that we're going to want are in there. We've also got the control room set up here. So like I said, we want to turn this control room on, so we have all of this extra functionality rather than just using the default outputs for Cubase. You can flick over to mono if you want here. You can also look at this tab down the bottom. And these tabs you should always look out for. The same on this side. You see you've got editor tabs, visibility tabs. There's a lot of extra functionality there. This insert tab you can actually add, let's say for something like Steinberg supervision. You can have that loaded up on the monitor output, so you can actually see what's going on with your audio, whatever's coming out of the speakers. You can actually reference stuff there on this section. Then lastly, you've got meters there as well. Now let's check out the lower zone. We've got the lower zone on our tilt key because I like to just be able to hide this whenever I need to. By default, the mixer comes up here. So this is the mixer window. All your channels are going to be displayed here. You can flick between different modes for the inserts. You can see the bit crusher effect that we put in there is there. Sends, and then the faders. We can also expand that to show some extra functionality up the top there. We've got this editor page. Now we have no editor open currently. Let's just double click to create a part here. You can see the MIDI editor will come up by default for this one. And also this editor section, you'll notice that now, before we didn't have anything in the editor section. If we go to retro log, we click editor. And if you go back to mix console, you see there's nothing available here now. But if we go back to the editor section and come down here and select a part and then click this editor one here, you've got a lot of extra functionality which shows up here pertaining to the MIDI editing. Now this will change depending on what kind of editor you're using. There's editors for Vari audio, for bending vocals and things around. There's editors here for chords. A lot of different stuff that can get displayed here, and it's all kind of context sensitive depending on what you're doing currently. We've also got sampler control here. I'll just quickly create a sampler track for us. So there is your sampler control section down here. Then we've got chord pads and our MIDI remotes, which we looked at briefly as well. And your various different remotes can be accessed and edited here in this section. Right, and lastly, there's these status and info lines that can be enabled and disabled as well for these. And the transport bar down at the bottom, if you don't want that toolbar and you prefer to have everything up at the top, you can do that there. Right, so let's move into the mixer window. We're going to hit F3 to bring up the mixer. So you can see the same mixer information that we have here, but there's a lot more information being displayed now. Very much the same setup. We have the toolbar along the top, as we did before in the arrange page, which again can be modified to suit yourself. We've got the left pane, which is active currently. Again, we can decide what we want active at any time. The left pane basically showing us the list of tracks that we have here. We've got the history, everything that we've done in the mixer. So if you want to move up and undo things, you can do that. Mixer snapshots. And we've got these zone controls here. The zone controls are handy if you, say for instance, want to just group all your inputs on the left-hand side. We can do that. Now these are your inputs here. Anything that you're doing in the track will now be in the middle ones here. And we could say our stereo output, let's say we want the main master output synced to the right-hand side. That'll move it over for you there. Now when you click this window control again, yeah, you'll see that there's actually a lot of additional stuff in here. We can disable everything that's shown on the mixer channels if you want. You'll see almost nothing there now. We can kind of go through these, meter bridge, everything. That's just the clean mixer with no additional stuff. I like to have the channel overview up. The meter bridge you can have up if you want. The channel name, obviously we want to have that. Equalizer curve I find extremely useful, so you can just see what's happening on all the EQs, especially if you are doing sort of low cuts and stuff. It's very easy to see what is low cut and what isn't. Hardware, that's pertaining to my hardware, specifically my sound card. That's if you have a Steinberg card, it'll be there. Routing, we're going to want our pre's important. We want to see that. The strip, I typically have that open. You can access the EQs from the strip, but you can also have the EQs by themselves. And yeah, you can just kind of decide exactly what you want available to you. Channel latency is something I always like to see as well in this section. Right, so we can hit F3 again to close down our mixer. We come back to the arrange page. I also want to just open up the media bay, which is F5, and just maximize this one. Again, very much the same layout. You have all your media displayed in the middle here. You've got your file browser on the left. This is the attribute inspector, so this is where you do tagging for any of your stuff stored on your drive. You can again access this window control and remove any of these components that you want. The filters at the top, for example, attribute inspector can be folded in and out. And yeah, that is your media bay. We'll take a look at this in a little bit more detail as well. So I think that pretty much covers the general overview of the user interface. Now you know where everything is. Let's move on to the next video. I'll catch you there. In this video, we want to start bringing some stuff into our project so we can start making some music here. I want to talk briefly about the media bay and how to import stuff into Cubase. There's a number of different ways you can do this. You can, of course, just drag and drop from the File Explorer directly into the arrange page, and it will import the audio for you. That applies to MIDI as well. As we looked at in the last video, we do have in the right pane here, we've got the media section. So you can go to your file browser here, or you can go to the favorites like we looked at as well. So this is all a possibility, and this is very handy when you are working. But there is a more powerful way that you could search for things like this as well, and that is the media bay. So I want to just bring that up. This is actually, a lot of this is from the media bay as well. It's the same interface. So we'll just bring up the media bay by hitting F5. And I just want to talk about how you actually scan your drive for sample content that you can use. So I have my samples on this E drive here. What you want to do is you want to come over to your browser here and go to the drive or go to the directory that you want scanned, for example. So I have the samples drive here. I haven't currently got this scanned because I'm working with a fresh installation of Cubase. But I can hit any of these to have them, let's say this one here, and it will start scanning these folders for you and adding them to the Media Bay database. And then they will be searchable from within this section here. Close that down, and let's say we wanted to find a kick, for example. Just type in kick, and you'll see all the kicks come up here. Now, you can see some of these have tags. These are tags that I've previously done. Sometimes they may have these tags done from sample libraries that you buy or download from Splice or whatever. They don't always have this. These ones, for example, let's say I wanted to tag these all as a kick. We can just select all of these, and we look at the attribute expector on the right-hand side. Yours may differ slightly here. You can actually set up which tags you want to see at any given time. But I can go here and go category, for example, and we can select drums and percussion. We can say subcategory and choose drums and percussion and kick drum. And you'll see they've all been tagged as kick drums now. So now if I was to be browsing my media library at any time, we can remove this kick search that we have there. I can go and search for drums and percussion, and I can go to kick drum, and all the kicks that are tagged, those are the ones that I just did now, they are not coming up in Media Bay. So it's a really, really powerful way to sort of organize your sample content, and not just sample content. This applies to MIDI files, presets, everything. It can all be tagged within Media Bay. Any media that Steinberg supports. You'll see if you click this top section here. I currently only have audio files selected, but if we were to go to all media types and then look at our Sonic Academy folder, for example, and just remove our tags. This is all the content that we have. We have some MIDI files there. We have some audio. If we looked at our factory content, for example, you'll see we have a ton of preset stuff here. We've got projects even. These are templates. There's a ton of stuff, and you can filter between those by turning things on and off. Turn them all off. Maybe just look at pattern banks, for example. And there you go. Those are pattern banks for the drums. FX chain presets. Yeah, so very, very powerful system. This I would take some time to get this set up when you get going with Cubase. Make sure that you are scanning all the relevant folders with your splice sounds and so on, so that it's all showing up here and you can search for stuff very quickly anytime you need to. Of course, you can, again, use this. We've only got a few samples here that we're going to be bringing in, and we're going to be using it just directly from this media bay on this side. And all you need to do to get stuff in is to, for instance, just take what you want, drag it in, and it will create new channels for you. It'll ask you if you want to do one track or different tracks. In this case, we want the different samples on different tracks. Now, this dialog here, very important when you are bringing stuff in. I would suggest you always select this, copy all files to project folder. In doing so, it's going to create a copy. So it will leave this one alone on a drive in the samples drive here, and it'll move the file to the project directory that we're making. This just prevents you from, changing a file that is shared between multiple different projects. You want a clean copy of that every time you do this. So make sure that that is done. And you can do this convert to project settings if necessary. If you're bringing in different sample rates and things like that, you can have it convert automatically for you. We'll just click OK. And there you can see it's brought in 2 audio files for us onto audio channels here. Same goes for MIDI. You can just click and drag, and samples can also be loaded into a sampler directly from here just by right-clicking on this and saying create sampler track, and you'll see it'll actually bring that audio file in on the sampler rather than an audio channel. So that's how you get media in and out of Cubase. We're going to move on to the next video now and start applying this to bringing in some drum sounds and start working on a beat for our track. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.